Seeing a quorum of voting members, I call the June 12th Student Achievement and District Instructional Performance Committee of the whole meeting to order. Treasurer Wagner, would you please call the attendance roll?
Mr. Craig,
Here.
Mr. Lindy,
Here, but online.
Not really.
here. Okay, Dr. Moffat, Mr. Morosky,
Here.
Vice President Weinberg, here, President Bolton.
Present. We start with the old business. Are there any particular announcements from the chair or from the board? Yes, Vice President. After we get through the board announcements, we will then go to the superintendent if she has any, or the treasurer. Madam Vice President.
Yes, thank you, President Bolton. I just want to
Anytime.
take a quick opportunity for those who may not have known, or for those who did know, but we would just want to say a happy belated birthday to our wonderful President Bolton. So can everyone give her a big round of applause? I would start singing happy birthday, but I don't think you all want to hear. And we have another. I'm getting there, but thanks. To my wonderful left, we have our wonderful board member, Morosky.
Yes.
And he also celebrated a birthday. So let's give him a big round of applause. Did I miss anybody else? I don't think I did.
Yeah, my mom is the one who deserves the round of applause. Multiple. Round of applause, Mom. I know you're not watching, but if you ever do, you're smarter than that.
But yes, I just wanted to take a really quick minute just to say that. Thank you all.
Two Gemini twins here, so watch out. That explains everything. They tried to separate us when we've been on committee together, especially the treasurer, because Mike and I together like to spend money. But we've cured ourselves of that, and we appreciate it.
It's actually where and then we'll stop. But thank you, Mayor. Member Weinberg. It's actually where the Sad Cow Committee came from, was from that relationship, which disbanded the student achievement. But anyway, we'll talk about that.
That's sort of true. Okay. Interim Superintendent Murphy, do you have any announcements that you need to make tonight at all before we
Thank
start
you,
our
Madam Chair.
presentations?
Thank you so much. I am excited to congratulate the members of our faculty and staff who were recognized Monday night at the School for Creative and Performing Arts on their accomplishments for being Employees of the Year. There's a lovely story on our website for everyone to check out, and amazing pictures as well.
Thank you. A round of applause for them. Thank you. Any members have any other items before we move off of old business? Thank you. Interim Superintendent Murphy, let us get started with the presentations, and I understand we have a few or several, and we'll at the end of each of it, if it's okay with you, that's when we'll take questions on each rather than waiting till the very end, if that works.
That does work
in
for
your
me.
plan. Okay.
So tonight we are going to hear about a couple of our goals and a couple of our guardrails. The goals around third grade reading and sixth grade reading, and the guardrails around the whole child and community partnerships. Next slide, please. So the first goal, the percent of third graders proficient in reading on the Ohio State test will increase from 47.5 in June 2023 to 61% by June 2027. And at this time, we have a chart that will show you the scoring over time as it relates to the success criteria on the iReady assessments, which cover reading. And you can see that this goal is going to be on track. You'll notice across the top blue, it kind of looks like gray on my screen, but that could be my age ribbon. Anywhere from the fall of 2022 to fall of 2023. But I'd like to probably call your attention to the spring of 2022, 2023, when they were first graders, to the spring of 23, 24 for the second graders, and the percent of increase for those children on iReady. And you can see that those first grade reading students are meeting the success criteria benchmark on those screenings. And the goal for that again is on track. Any questions about goal one?
Chairman Craig.
would you prefer to hear all of the categories? I'm not sure how you want to,
Okay.
okay.
I just
Get it.
wanted to make a special point to note that we are seeing such sizable growth throughout the year. Also from both in their first grade year where they start in the fall to where they end in the spring, and then
Yes.
again in the second grade year where they start in the fall and end in the spring. It's such a substantial growth in their proficiency, and I think that's a tribute to the hard work of the folks working with our students.
Thank you, Member Craig. Vice President?
Yes, I would just like to copy off of Board Member Craig and just saying to being able to see the increase. I know with the iReady, it was just introduced to our students, I think it was last year,
That's
that
correct.
they started taking that, and to be able to transition from taking the map reading that they took for years to now being able to adjust and understand how to do the iReady. I think that that's, showing good progress, and I look forward to seeing how the families are able to also be able to read the family reports and to kind of be able to relate and see how their students are growing into the future.
Mr. Morosky?
Thank you, President Bolton. And so my question is, this is remarkable and excellent. And I remember years and years ago, it seems like a really long time ago, when we had the first grade reading specialists and we had like cut back on some, and then I thought we put some back, and I could be wrong. There was so much, it was like right at the beginning of COVID and then through COVID and after and the ESSER and all this. What would you attribute this to? I mean, I know there are many factors. There are awesome teachers, parents, et cetera, administrators. But was there something that points to why we're seeing like over like 20% increase?
I think there's a few things that we could attribute to that. And one is strong professional development provided to the teachers in the classroom. And then following that professional development, a monitoring of their implementation. So I think over time, we have seen where it makes a difference when people are following the prescription for the instruction.
Thank you. Other questions, comments? Continue.
President Bolton?
Yes, Mr. Lindy.
Yeah, thanks very much. And I'm so sorry I can't be there in person today. I'm grateful for the chance to be online. Interim Superintendent Murphy, I was interested to hear more about this professional development. Do you remember, because we've used different providers for that in the past and some of it we've done in-house. Do you remember which of the professional development was particularly helpful?
I could find that out for you. And I think that's also a matter of maybe assessing the teachers to see what they feel was most impactful in terms of the level. So some of that professional development comes from the onset of the training, and then other professional development, again, as we move throughout the year and we're monitoring, providing constant feedback from our academic team, which is more in-house.
Yeah, that's helpful. And I think, what was part of the reason I was asking was if that's something that's really led to improved outcomes in the past, I'd be interested in learning more about whether it's impacted by budget decisions moving into the future years. And to what extent are we prioritizing continuing things that have been helpful in the past versus things that we have to cut back on?
Absolutely. Our team had a meeting with the curriculum department and some specific teachers who have been working on content area. And we do plan to have our plan ready to share with the board and then the public in the near future.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Any other comments or questions from board members? Continue.
Absolutely. The next slide allows us to look at the first grade Black or African-American students who are meeting that same success criteria on the benchmark iReady. You will see that we believe that is on track. Calling your attention for the Black students from the spring of 2022, 2023 of 40.6 to the spring of 23, 24, 39.8. However, we do believe that we will still be on track for that 26% target.
Comments, questions? Proceed.
Yes, we're looking at Hispanic growth. The Hispanic student growth in the spring of 2023 was 20.9%. If you look at this past spring, you'll see a nice percentage of increase to 29.2. We believe that will be on track.
Mr. Morosky.
Real quick question. Thank you, President Bolton. So this is kind of related to the conversations we had about the ESOL position, and, sounds like, everyone's kind of on the same page of looking at how we can sort of beef that up. So as we tease all these things out, and I despise the term subgroups. I don't have a better one, but it like triggers me for some reason. I don't know, but either way, that's the parlance of the times. As we see more and more influx of African students from like Mauritania and the west coast of Africa, which we are going to in the fall through December, and it probably is going to happen pretty quickly. Where I just think about teasing this out, and like, there's Black students, there's African students, there's African American students, like, I don't want to get into all of that right now, but taking Hispanic and making it something else, I don't know, because we're gonna see a lot of those students, I think, in the fall, especially up in like Hartwell Elementary and out in that area.
I agree. We do have a group of teachers out at the Hamilton County Educational Service Center this week doing training. And then we're also excited, we are beginning a partnership, an inter-district partnership with our curriculum team, our student services team, and our family community engagement team to be able to provide wraparound services for our students of Hispanic heritage that we see could be duplicated in other areas of sub-teams, so to speak, as you're mentioning, Mr. Morosky. So excited about the future of that work.
Other
Fully on
comments?
board.
Member Matt.
Yes, thank you, President Bolton. So I agree with Board Member Morosky, really making sure that we are supporting our multilingual students. I do have a question about the Hispanic students, and again, it will address the multilingual students as well. Do we offer the OELPA assessment?
We do.
For our students? And so with that, what would you say in terms of the alignment and the growth that we're seeing? How beneficial are those, that test and identifying accommodations to support our students? How helpful is that in terms of the increase in data that we're seeing?
Board Member Mapp, I think what you just said is key, helping us to identify early. So the sooner we can identify the students who would benefit from the additional supports, I think the better off they'll be, not only showing scores on the iReady, but in the classroom with their instruction overall. I think identity and providing supports is key early.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Dr. Moffett.
Thank you for this information. This is super helpful to know that we're on track, but it pains my heart that the numbers are so low, 21%. We're talking about 21%, and I'm trying to be quiet. So, but I do have a question. Would it be possible to even compare us to the state or compare us to the nationally? I just, for this one and the one before, when we're talking about Hispanic students and Black students, I know the numbers are low. I know that we are traditionally under the majority, but I'm interested in where do we compare at least a little bit on the state level and a little bit on the national level? And I know this is our goal, but.
Yes, ma'am. Great question. And the question we're all asking, what I will need to do is for the iReady assessment, which is this measurement, to find out if there is a state average for this in particular. I think in addition to that, as the state test scores are coming out, being able to share that with you, with the board, with the public, is also going to be helpful, and maybe even more helpful because that's the ultimate measure.
Yes. Okay.
So we definitely should be able to do, and we'll be able to do the state level for the state testing. I'd have to dig into whether we would have that average on a state level for iReady.
Okay. I'm interested, not necessarily in the iReady piece,
Yes.
but the state piece, just to
Mhm.
see where we compare, because it just, I mean, I know we are celebrating being on track, but it just does something to me that we're celebrating a 21% reading, and that it just should, of course it should be higher, but I want to make sure that we are comparable to state, and specifically state, but more national. And I know that's not now, but I'm going to ask that question again, like where do we fit in this as a cog in this big wheel, if you don't mind kind of looking at
Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? I could take a moment. I really appreciate the issue about comparing with the state. how close or how far we are away from whatever that state average is. And there is some history that we can also then cite as a district in some of these areas as to how, did we get closer to what the state average is? Did we get farther? I mean, always comparing ourselves to ourselves is useful, but to show the growth and the development. But I know that previous years, there's been a big emphasis on, are we getting closer to the average? Not only for our kids or this subgroup or that subgroup, but I think that's would be an interesting thing to go forward with. Superintendent?
Absolutely. Just before we move on, the next slide will talk about takeaways and next steps. And we are happy to see strong gains, even to Dr. Moffitt's point about low starting point and a long way to go. We agree that there's work to do, but we do see year-over-year growth for all students, and we're happy about being able to look at them, for example, from grade 1 to grade 2, apples to apples. And then the Hispanic students seeing the largest amount of growth. But again, to your point, need to dig deeper into how do we align with state averages overall and making sure that we're beating those state averages. So our next step is to review the end of year data, which we do have raw data in for the state scores. It is being currently disaggregated and cleaned up between our in our EMIS office. And then we'll continue to emphasize the use of Tier 1 instruction for all of our learners. And we'll prepare for the set of growth goals for the students when they return into fall. So you'll see from 2nd to 3rd, et cetera. And then the next slide will take us to Goal 2, which is the current gap in reading proficiency between 6th grade Black, Hispanic, and multiracial students and the 6th grade white students on the Ohio State test will shrink from 47.4 in June 2023 to 27% in June 2027. And so we start with our multiracial students, and you'll see honing in on spring 2022, 54.2% to spring 23-24, 70.3%.
Any questions? Thank you.
All right, also on the next slide for the iReady assessment for grade 4, our Black students, spring 2023, 29.6%, and spring 23-24, 44.5% on track. And then in this category, we look at our Hispanic students, our final category, 2023, 22-23 spring, 23.8, 23.4, 41.6. We're seeing and experiencing growth, and we are on track. For the next steps, our key, yes, ma'am, I'm
Comment?
sorry.
Vice President?
I just had a quick question and you can just clarify something for me. If you could go back to slide, I think it is 8. And maybe I just need to understand a little bit better. So this is our ultimate goal that we have here listed between 6th graders, correct? And then when you go to the next slide and we're talking about goals 2A and B, and then we're talking about the iReady, is there a reason why we're not putting an emphasis on utilizing the OST test since we're talking about?
Because this is the interim goal, I believe.
Okay,
Is that helpful?
I just wanted to make sure. So because it's the interim goal, where do we have the OST placed at?
I will check that out for you.
It just came to mind here as I was looking at it saying 6th grade. And I get that that's the end, you know, what we would like, but leading up to the 6th grade, we have the 3rd grade state test, which would be comparable to what we're expecting to look for in
Yes.
4th, 5th, and 6th. So I'm just interested in terms of, in this particular goal, why we're using the iReady.
We have to
Just-
use the iReady in the interim because we only do those state tests. Well, for 3rd grade, it's twice a year. But the other scores, it's once a year, and we won't get those scores, final scores back till about October. So in order to measure our progress along the way to see if
That
we're
makes sense.
putting a dent into it, we have to have some type of measure, and the decision for iReady is what was made to pull interim data.
And because it takes 3 times a year and it gives us the results for that.
ma'am.
Okay,
Is that
thank you.
okay?
That makes sense.
I'm
Where is
sorry,
it?
it's number
Number
4 on that, in that paragraph. I think that's what it, in that slide. at the bottom,
On which slide though?
the one that you're on, number 9.
Yeah.
Oh, I
Using
moved on.
fall
I moved
fall.
on to like 10 and 11.
So
Okay.
it talks
now-
about using the fall to fall.
Oh, I see at the bottom.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you. Okay,
Mhm.
thank you for clarifying that.
Yes,
I don't know if anyone else had that, especially in the public there. So thank you.
Thank you. All right. Any other questions? Mr. Lindy, you good?
Thank you, President Bolden.
Okay.
All right, so here we are with our key takeaways, also seeing gains throughout the year, especially with every subgroup, and then in particular with our Hispanic students. And we're looking to be on track to surpass the 24-25 goal. Our next steps, continuing to review the data, digging into the data, continuing to emphasize the use of Tier 1 curriculum for all of our students, and preparing for growth goals for individual students along the way. All right,
Any questions, comments? Okay.
all right. Guardrail number 1, dealing with the whole child. The superintendent will not ignore the needs and the talents of the whole child by providing for students' mental and physical well-being through academics, the arts, athletics, civic engagement, career opportunities, and leadership development. So guardrail 1A on the next slide talks about the percent of high school students participating in arts and athletic-based extracurricular activities. You'll see that our X to Y is blank at this time because during this school year, the form of measurement shifted. So in our athletics team, we have been able to monitor this through the use of a system we call Final Forms. And this year, it was decided that we would bring arts measurement onto Final Forms as well. So we're looking at finding the baseline data for this school year. So in the past, the arts was determined in a different format, but we decided to unify that format this school year. So what you'll see is the spring of 2023, 25.8% with the new tool being used.
Could you explain that a little bit more as to why we changed it or the purpose of changing it?
In the past, so prior to this school year, the measure was used based on students' attendance and enrollment and participation on a variety of different forms that individuals may have had in their schools, and school to school, I believed it was tracked in a variety of ways. In athletics, our athletics team, Josh Harden, tracked student athletes through the Final Form measure. It was determined that that was a good way to track and one place to track and a unified way to track. So the students participating in the arts extracurricular have been transitioned now to the Final Forms. So it's a new measure, therefore why you see that X to Y blank.
Vice President?
So if we're looking at the numbers here, though, you're saying in the 23-24 fall, there was 64.6% of students involved in athletics because we didn't measure that through the arts and extracurricular?
So this is arts and extracurricular, but it was a random way, school by
So it includes everything in that
everything.
64.
Yes.
So then you're saying for the 23-24, it dropped down to only 25.8%?
And I believe some of that is because of still trying to put in some of the participation in the arts so that it aligns to how athletics is being tracked.
So are we saying, is this an accurate number? Because based off of, I know some presentations that we've had an increase of students participating in the arts and extracurricular, and we've had an increase of students participating in athletics.
So based on the data that I have before me right now, this is the number.
Okay. Thank you.
Member Matt?
Yes, thank you. What is specifically being measured in the final form? Is it just strictly participation, or is there other things that are being measured to identify if we're meeting the needs of the whole child?
Yeah, this is participation.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
Other comments, questions on this particular matter? All right. Yes,
Is
Dr.
there-
Moffett.
Is there a cost to final forms?
There is a cost to final forms. I can find out what that cost is.
Okay. I'm looking at it from a budget standpoint, like, hey,
That's the
we're
spirit.
adding to it, so what's the cost and is there anything comparable? That's just,
It is
Okay.
new.
okay.
It is new. It is a new.
If we could just find
Mhm.
out the cost and who's doing that and maybe we come up with a Google form, I don't know, but just that, that question would be pertinent to me. Thank you.
Vice President?
And I will just add, I know with Final Forms, just having a student who is an athlete, it also houses all of your important paperwork in terms of the registration and also some of the compliance things that they have to fill out as well from the state. So it houses all of that information as well.
Thank you, Vice President. Other comments, questions? Superintendent?
Yes, ma'am. So guardrail 1B. The percent of elementary school students who have a favorable response for well-being on the Panorama survey will increase from 56% in May 2023 to 60% in May 2025. So the spring 2023-24 has 59%, with our target being 60. That is on track.
Thank you. Questions about that particular item? Proceed.
All right, so our next steps for guardrail 1 include a new system for consistently tracking of arts and athletics is now in place to establish a more accurate baseline. And then secondly, improvement year over year for every student group in the sense of well-being. Our next steps are to continue to explore expanded options for the whole child development, including elementary and junior high feeder programs, continuing to improve data entry and collection for extracurriculars in one place moving forward, and setting school focus areas for climate and culture for the 2024-2025 school year.
Are there any questions about next steps? I would just ask on not necessarily the next steps, but the athletic piece is so institutionalized. It's so structured. And we've been at it such a long time, but in the last several years, well, the last decade, we've made a big deal about having arts, if you will, and whether it's art, music, or what have you, in all of our schools. We've made some significant staffing investment, and certainly even if you talk in terms of the amount of money that we've spent regarding expanding the arts program extracurricularly, these numbers look like we've taken a step back on the arts. So I don't know if it's a process, that we change the process, or indeed somehow with this additional money and commitment and effort, I think more than most any other urban district, we've made a commitment to the arts. I'm just interested to see if we can know if that's really a process change or measurement, or if indeed we are having less kids be involved in all these other sorts of activities. I would worry about that, because I know it's been a very heavy priority for a while. So
I think for me, as someone who attends athletic and arts and other extracurricular events, as many of you do, all of you do, I do not think there are fewer, and this is just Shauna's opinion of what I see across the district, visiting schools. I do not think there has been a decrease in opportunities for kids to participate and be fully engaged. So we will go back, review what the process has been. We have clearly expanded opportunities across junior high and elementary schools broadly. We just need the data to accurately demonstrate that investment.
thank you very much. Any other comments or questions about this particular item? I appreciate that, Superintendent. All right, proceed.
Oh, yes, ma'am. So we are on guardrail 6, which involves community partnerships. In pursuit of equity, the superintendent will not ignore the value and number of community partnerships, community access to facilities, and decision-making at school sites. On the next slide, we look at guardrail 6A. The percent of schools with an active LSDMC will increase from 90% in May 2023 to 100% by May 2025. All of our schools, there is one exception to the rule, Bramble. All of our schools, however, do have active, engaged LSDMCs with agendas and meeting minutes and rosters. We're on track.
Our LSDMC expert, Dr. Moffett, do you have any questions or comments?
I'm super
Ma'am.
happy to see it. So no, nothing. Glad we're on track.
Okay. All right, continue.
Guardrail 6B, the percent of partners and other stakeholders who have a favorable response to their partnership with the district on the district survey will increase to at least 80% by May 2025. And so we did the first survey, the spring of 24, with 56.7 saying that they had a favorable response to our target of 80%. This was the first time. And it was done in the spring.
Thank you, Mr. Morosky.
Thank you, President Bolton. Thank you, Interim Superintendent. I also agree that we will hit that 80% or perhaps even more, beginning at 56.7, but I would love to give you an opportunity, and it's probably the next slide, to explain where your confidence comes from.
Absolutely.
So where does your confidence come from that we'll get to 80%?
I'm extremely confident. This is the partnership piece is my wheelhouse. I do think there's something to be said about maybe survey fatigue in this spring that may play a part of the 56.7% in my opinion.
Thank you. Member Moffett?
Well, as a research person, I'm interested as to what the 56.6% said. So if there is any qualitative data that is taken off of that, I see the key takeaways and those are great. But what was their barrier? Was it access? What are some of the things that they said they needed that they either didn't get or were not happy with what they received? So I'd like to see the qualitative data with that. And then if we could maybe, I know I've talked to you about expanding our partnerships, but what do some of our future partners need in order to partner with us, get that data too?
So I will just tell you, I do have that survey. It was a Qualtrics survey launched by Brian Sershin in our Research and Development Office. So we do have that in-house with their written feedback as well. Some of the highlights that I would share with you, this was a survey done of not only our lead agency executive directors, but all of the partners. So many people participated, whether they were a district-wide partner or a school-based partner. We asked them to complete this survey. And I would tell you that the partners who are school-based wanted to have more connection at the district level. They wanted to have more engagement with what was happening broadly across the district. I think that they want to be more involved at a higher level, which is good news because there's definitely room and space to allow that to happen. I might also say about the partnership, data communication was one piece. They wanted to have more opportunities for communication with our school district. Again, another opportunity for growth for us. But I can definitely share the entire survey. You can read the specific comments.
Other comments? Mr. Craig?
I just wanted to kind of pose a question out there, and I think this is sometimes hard for us to distinguish between someone who's a partner or stakeholder versus someone who's like doing business with the district or someone who is attempting to do business with the district. And in some ways, we've never really given a clear definition to distinguish some people who play multiple roles in that same sense, right? Where they may
Yes.
be doing some things as a partnership and some things as a vendor to the
Yes.
district. And so I just wanted to maybe gauge how you all are thinking about that aspect of it as well, because I think that also makes a difference. If, for instance, someone's unhappy because their relationship has changed, that makes a very big difference on whether or not they are happy with partnering with the district or happy with the fact that we don't need their service for that particular item or not?
Yeah, and I appreciate that question because there are several factors. One, well, let me say this, on the partner and or vendor comment. For me, our lead agency executive directors who employ our resource coordinators, some might consider that a vendor. I consider it a partnership. So while, yes, we do have contracts with them, and yes, we do pay them for resource coordination, there are so many other services that are provided through that resource coordinator. I do see it as a partnership, my opinion. I also would say that doing this in the spring may have had an impact on it, because what if we just canceled a contract with them? There could be any number of factors. What if 2 years ago, 3 years ago, they had a stronger relationship with us, being that maybe they were in more schools or they were more visible in our district, and maybe that shifted because of other priorities over time. Could be a variety of reasons, to your point.
Thank you, Mr. Craig. Other comments, questions? Proceed.
And our next steps are, our key takeaways, our LSTMCs are now operating in every school, again, as I mentioned, with the exception of Bramble. But we're happy to work with Bramble Preschool. And then we're considering strategies for an increased response rate. And surveys include responses from lead agencies, district-wide, and school-based partners. Our next steps are to continue to expand and improve supports for our LSTMCs, including supporting the principals and understanding the importance of that work and how to keep LSTMCs active over time. Sometimes, especially this time of year where sixth graders are transitioning out and their parent may have been a member, can be a little challenging when communication needs to continue. And then we're also interested in exploring best ways to get feedback from their partners even ahead of the survey time, to make sure that we're meeting their needs and that they feel alignment with our goals. And that concludes my report.
Thank you very much, Superintendent. Any last comments or questions or overall thoughts by board members? Seeing none, the chair will entertain a motion to go in a second to go into executive session for the purpose to consider the employment of a public official as well as security matters.
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Dr. Moffitt. The public needs to know that after we vote on this motion, we will go to executive session. We will then return to public session, but no business will be conducted. Roll call, please.
Mr. Craig,
Yes.
Ms. Mapp,
Yes.
Dr. Moffitt, Mr. Morosky.
Yes.
Vice President Weinberg,
Yes.
President Bolton.
Thank you. Yes.